Good morning. Today is the 16th day of Tevet, the 28th of December. We're up to the fifth reading of Vayechi, and we continue with the blessings to the tribes. And we're going to focus today on one of these blessings, which is actually going to tie into something we talked about last week. We mentioned that there's a saying from the sages that because Joseph did not stop the brothers from saying, or did not admonish them, or did not criticize them for saying, our father, your servant. If you remember that, we said that because of that, the sages say that he was called bones even in his life. And we explained that idea. We didn't go very deeply into the idea of bones, but we explained last week that there is a sign that your plan is not going as planned if, in order to enact it, in order to make it happen, you have to transgress one of the commandments. In this case, it was the commandment to honor his father and his mother, of course. And so at that moment, Joseph should have stopped. And in any case, he stopped anyway, a little bit later. And it's like a sign from above that you've already achieved what you were looking to achieve, or this is simply not the right way. So today we're going to look at what Joseph is blessed with. And yes, earlier this week we were talking about the evil eye, and we said, Alei Ayin, that he is the higher eye, that the descendants of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, are considered to be like fish. They procreate like fish, they multiply like fish. The idea being that fish do not have any evil eye on them. And we said that getting to a higher eye is to look at yourself as if you have no achievements. All your achievements are God's. And then the evil eye or the jealousy of other people doesn't affect you. But now we'll look at what Jacob says to him in another verse. He says, from the hands of the noble one of Jacob, from there shepherds the rock of Israel. This is one of the statements that Jacob says to Joseph. It's chapter 49, verse 24. What does this even mean? What is the meaning of the symbolically laden phrase, the rock of Israel? He's calling Joseph, in a certain sense, the rock of Israel. He's called the shepherd. He shepherds the rock of Israel. What is this rock of Israel that he shepherds? According to the simple explanation, it refers to all the children of Israel, meaning that Joseph is the shepherd of all the children of Israel, who are called the rock of Israel. One might say he shepherded and sustained them during their time in Egypt. Some of the commentators explain that the rock means essence. Evan is like saying the essence of Israel. For example, the Radak explains, because the stone is a strong object and one solid piece, he called all of Israel a stone. Another explanation is that the rock refers to a unique form of the word father. Evan and Av, they start with the same two letters, Aleph Bet, refers to a unique form of the word father, which refers to father and family. Together, Rashi quotes Onkelos, who translates the rock as fathers and sons. How does that work? Because Av and Ben together, when I take these two words, father and son together, I get the word rock, Evan, Av, Ben. I take Aleph, Bet, and Bet, Nun. Together they form the word rock. So we can combine the explanations to explain many things here. But still, the question is, what is an Evan? What does a rock have to do symbolically, or more, let's call it metaphorically, between the rock and the father-son relationship? What's the connection? So the rock is heavy. There's something called the weight of the stone. If you look in the Proverbs 27:3, you'll see this concept of the weight of the stone. A stone is always considered related to weight. The word for weight of koved is the same word that the Ten Commandments use to say, honor your father and your mother. Kabed. Kabed and koved. Kabed is to honor someone, but it could also mean make someone else heavy. Make someone else weighty in your eyes. That's the idea there. In other words, the mitzvah, the commandment to honor one's father, means to relate to his father and his mother as something heavy, weighty, and present. The son may sometimes feel that the weight is oppressive and cramps his style, but he must learn to honor, kabed, the weightiness, the koved. In short, the son gives the father koved, weightiness, by virtue of the fact that he honors him. This means that he does not ignore him and is certainly not embarrassed by him. So what we get from this is a very important thing, that people who are not truly connected in this world is because they lack a connection to the previous generations, meaning they don't bear the full weight of humanity in them, because part of being a father-son relationship is receiving from that the weight, receiving from that the essence of this thing of having a strong presence in the world. What about the mother? So, interestingly, this phrase, Even Israel, the rock of Israel, is equal to Beit Israel. It's equal to, Beit Yaakov, the house of Jacob. Before the Torah was given, God said to Moses, speak to the children of Israel and to the house of Jacob. And it says that to speak to the to the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, that it means talking to the men. And to say things to the house of Jacob was to speak to the women. The difference being that to the men he spoke more harshly, meaning that he taught them what goes wrong if you don't follow the Torah. When he spoke to the women in general don't need to hear anything about what goes wrong. Women are not supposed to even listen when they start hearing that someone's saying this is what happens if you don't do what you're supposed to do. They should close their eyes and move on, close their ears and move on, and don't listen to it. A woman needs to do things because of her connection to it. And that's what women say in the morning, Shasani Kirtzano, that God made me according to His will. A woman's not supposed to take on herself this burden of, did I follow what I'm supposed to follow? Did I not follow what I'm supposed to follow? In the same way, the relationship with her husband should not be conditional. But a man's relationship with God has to be conditional. It has to be conditional in the sense there has to be a feeling that if I follow what God tells me, I'm more connected, and if I don't, I'm less connected. But for a woman, to be connected is the essence of life. And so you can't play with that. You can't say, oh, it's conditional. Husband cannot bring something like that. And so God towards the women doesn't say, if you do this, it'll be this way. If you do that, it'll be that way. We don't. That whole way of thinking is not connected to women. So the Rock of Israel turns out to be something that is saying that women have this naturally. They have this connection to the previous generations naturally. They don't have to do it specifically through hearing what's wrong and what's right. They connect to their parents also in a natural way, in a much more natural way. Today you could say maybe that that's also breaking down, but in previous generations certainly they used to say that. I remember the person I learned with in the mornings, he used to have this saying something like that: when you have a daughter is for life, but boys are not for life. The connection with boys is conditional. It depends on where life is going to take them. Let's look at another verse and finish with this. Benjamin, he says, is a wolf that ravages. In the morning he will devour, and in the evening he will divide the spoils. So Benjamin is the final seal of the blessings of Jacob to his sons. He likened 5 of them to animals: Judah to a lion, Dan to a snake, Yisachar to a donkey, and Naphtali to a doe. A doe is a female deer. If you follow, The Sound of Music, doe, a female deer. And Benjamin to a wolf. The partner of the wolf is the sheep. Today they are enemies, but in the future it says, and the wolf will live with the sheep in the messianic era of peace. In Jacob's blessings, the sons are likened to animals. There are no placid sheep. Jacob himself has many dealings with sheep. He is a shepherd and marries Rachel, whose name means sheep also. Rachel, in Hebrew, Arachel, is a female sheep. Furthermore, in Kabbalah it is written that Jacob himself is an aspect of a sheep, as in the verse, and the sheep Jacob separated, V'aksavim hifridi Yaakov. That it's not clear in this verse who is who is who here. And so it could be that the Aksavim Hifrid Yaakov, that the sheep that were separated are Jacob. From that we get the very important notion in Kabbalah that when Jacob was working with the sheep of Lavan, and then he had his own flocks on the side, and he was building his own flock using the system that he used there, that was actually building the house of Israel in the sense that he was choosing which souls he wanted to be included in the Jewish people. If so, the sheep, meaning Jacob, is blessing his son to be animals, and even carnivorous animals. This is an important foundation in education. The father must act like a sheep with temperance and calm. He must conduct himself with submission in the footsteps of the shepherd. But do not raise your children to be sheep. Instead, raise them to be lions and wolves. The wolf has tremendous power of lights of chaos, and so he devours the sheep. But Jacob the sheep knows how to inherit the lights of chaos from his brother Esau and bestow them upon his children in a rectified manner. In other words, there was once a class, it's actually very, we quoted it a number of months ago in Wonders also, about this whole idea of not mixing milk and meat. And not mixing milk and meat can be understood as that if the father is like a sheep, that he's supposed to teach temperance and calmness and so on, like a sheep, then if you make the child milchik, if you make him milky, like you make him too soft, then that's called mixing milk and meat. You're making the child more like a cream. But no, the way that you raise your children is to have character, is to have a strength of character. And that is likened in these blessings that he gives them to being these animals. Of course, it's a rectified form. It's not to act like a ravaging animal. It's to teach in the right way that the person should have character to stand up for what's right, and not to be a sheep that walks along and just accepts everything the way it is. So many times, the wolf son does not manage well with his sheep father. There is tension between them, and the son feels like he wants to devour his father. But the ultimate goal is, and the wolf will live with the sheep. The wolf son lives in peace with his father, the sheep. He understands that it is his father who gave him the power of the wolf. So it's not a sheep in wolf's clothing. It's actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. He understands that it's really my father who raised me. His wolf character was a recessive gene within his father's sheep character. Then the verse, and he will return the hearts of fathers to the sons and the hearts of the sons to the fathers, will be fulfilled. There's a certain time in life when the young people are much more idealistic, much stronger in their ways, and that's good. That's the way it should be. And then they look at the older people and they say, they've given up all their ideals, they've given up everything they believe in. This is a very common thing, especially, thank God, today in Israeli society, that the younger generation is more religious, it's more devout, it has more ideals, it gets stronger, and then they look sometimes back at this is how I was when I was 18, 19, 20, certainly that way. I looked at my parents and I said, I'm never going to be like them. But slowly I began to understand that the only reason I became the way I was because they were they were accepting of my ideals. They were willing to go with them. And when I decided to go to yeshiva full time, they supported it. And when I decided to go to the army, they supported that. They supported everything. And eventually the children understand that the reason that the parents supported this is not because they're pushovers, it's not because they'll do anything, it's because they see the importance of it. They see validity in it. They understand that there are different passages, right? Times of life, and there are phases and stages in life where you're supposed to act on your ideals, and the way you get the strength to be able to do that is by having a supporting home, to have a home that really allows you to do these things. And eventually the children come around, they realize that it was the recessive gene of my own parents that I received. This is where I really got my ideals from. By the way, this is true everywhere. It's not just true in the Jewish world. Everywhere you see the young people are much more much more active, much more pronounced, and they're vocal and so on. And that's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing, even if what they're saying at the moment is wrong, or you think it's wrong. But the fact that they have parents that support them, that eventually is reconciled. And that's what Isaiah means when he says that in the future the sheep will live with the wolf together. That the sheep, the father will show the child that it was exactly him that allowed him to become a wolf. So with this we'll end today. Thanks for joining. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Rabbi.